Hello, lovely people. I'm so sorry. I got a little bit distracted by doing formatting. Congratulations, Lurky Duck, on your land. And welcome, Analog, Lurky Duck, Watson, all the folk to stream today. Welcome to our very first working day of the month. So this week we've been talking primarily about cybersecurity and specifically talking about kind of the practicality aspect of assessing your cybersecurity stance, and talking about the fact that, like, while there are some very basic, good cyber hygiene things that everybody should be doing, essentially, sorry, got distracted, saw a mail truck outside my house. But what was I saying? Yeah, so there are some basic internet hygiene things and data hygiene things that everybody should be doing. But the truth of the matter is that everybody has their own risk tolerances and also their own things that they're actually worried about. And so it doesn't make sense to invest insane amounts of money or things into making a super secure private network when you don't really have much to protect. So yeah, talking about the practicality aspects and the fact that all of the cybersecurity advice that I'm going to be giving over the next month, everything that we're going to be talking about, this applies to a situation where you specifically are not being gone after, right? If the Russian mob, as the author put it, if the Russian mob or the NSA are trying to get information out about you specifically, you're probably screwed. And this advice is not going to help you. But, if you're looking at cybersecurity from the standpoint of not specific targets, people who aren't targeting specific people, but rather people who are hackers who are looking for easy marks, this will help. And with that in mind, so on Tuesday, we went over some vocab. On Wednesday, we actually read the first chapter of the book, Firewalls Don't Stop Dragons. And today we're going to be doing a little bit of reading of a couple short articles, and we're going to be creating a threat model. So we're specifically going to probably be creating a threat model for me. I'm not going to go into all of my personal details because that wouldn't be safe. But yeah, that's the plan. Protecting yourself from bot-driven attacks of opportunity is probably the most important thing you can do to prevent avoidable identity theft. Exactly. So that's really what we're kind of focusing on here. I'm going to be doing a slightly more intense version just because I think that there are aspects of my unique circumstance, or not unique, but my more rare circumstance that potentially mean that we'll get to do some more fun computery things. But I will identify which things I think are practical for the everyday person versus for someone with a life more like mine. So also, side note, I feel very cute today. Hi, Zezios. I just feel like I so very rarely feel cute, and I want to brag. I found one of my favorite bandanas. I found my lizard earrings, which I haven't seen in ages. And cute person that I'm seeing gave me a gift for my birthday. It's, look at this. It's, this is, gotta get closer to the screen, which means I have to stand up. Look at this. It's a pine cone, that has been sliced and put into resin. It's super cute and it's perfect for my outfit today. So I'm really happy. And I have my cute sweater that I got a month ago. I feel like my vibe, my weird, queer, homesteady, but not the trad wife kind vibe is truly coming together today, and I'm living for it. Thank you. I'm glad you guys like my outfit. Thank you for giving me the compliments that I was just asking for. Also, I refound one of my favorite tubes of lipstick, which is excellent. It's so nice to be able to switch to something that isn't super heavy goth, which I don't think that I give that vibe, but the black lipstick can be kind of intense, and I do love it most of the time, but it's nice to be able to switch it up and do something a little more natural. Oh, thank you. But yeah, so let's do a quick recap of the things that we've done, and then we'll jump straight into it. Cottage goth. It's the vibe. My goal in current aesthetics is to make my house and my wardrobe such that when someone comes into my home, it feels as though they have wandered into the cottage of like a librarian witch in the middle of the woods. This is the goal. Awesome. Gothic country girl. Yes. Similar vibes. But yeah, and then as a review, next week we're going to be talking about the difference between privacy and security and whether or not you actually need to sacrifice privacy in order to have security. What's the word I'm looking for? Spoilers. That's the word. Spoilers. The NSA wants you to think that you have to sacrifice security, sacrifice privacy for security. This is a lie. Okay, and then boop-a-doop. I really should name this something other than Firefox because sometimes I'm sharing a screen that is not Firefox, and then I see sound coming out of it, like last night when we were talking on Discord, and I get panicked that there's like background music that from like a YouTube video or something I had been watching earlier in the day. Anyway, boop-a-doop. Cool. So, yeah, main things that we were going over. Yes, I have little baby lesson plans. It helps me. Okay, yeah, so quick recap of vocab. We talked about firewalls, defense in depth, which means having lots of different kinds of security. Talked about the 3 phases of security. For the most part, we're going to be focusing on prevention and recovery. Detection is not something we're really going to focus on. Intrusion detection systems, we talked about what phishing is. We talked about personally identifiable information, direct threats and indirect threats. This is just useful terminology for you guys to know. We'll talk about encryption later. Probably not going to get into that too much today. And talked about what a router is. So if you guys have any questions, if there are any words that I'm using over the course of today that you are not familiar with, let me know. I sometimes get pretty heavy into jargon, and I'm specifically trying to make this a tutorial that is accessible to people who are not in the software engineering or hacking spheres. I'm specifically trying to make this accessible to people who are maybe a little tech inclined, but not like, probably don't have much experience with coding and aren't like immersed in the lingo and the culture. I don't have the YouTube yet. I'm so sorry. Damn it. I do have these. Fuck, I should add the YouTube link. It is not live yet. Oh, that's another thing that's worth noting. For an hour after this stream, I'm going to be hanging out in my Discord. I'm going to be hanging out in the voice channel. Anybody who is trying to make their own threat model is welcome to come by and ask me questions, get advice. I feel like I should have some sort of like lawyer disclosure of this is not legal advice. If you get hacked, I am not to blame. I cannot make you 100% secure. This is not a thing that exists, but I can give you good common sense advice. So I'll be hanging out in my Discord for approximately an hour after that. And while I am doing that, I am going to be editing my video from the past couple days so that I can upload them to the YouTube channel because the sound quality is shit. Hack-proofing isn't a trade. There's no licensing to worry about. Thank you. That's fair. Yeah. Safer to talk about this than, like, the kinds of teas that I drink. So what are we titling this? Threat model. There we go. What's Lamau? Why are you laughing at me? What have I done? What foolish thing have I done that I have overlooked? I did decide to switch all of this to like black paper to help my eyes a little bit. My tea joke? Oh, this is safer than talking about the cheese that I drink. That's true. For context, for some of our new friends, I am a very strong believer in modern medicine. I foolishly told a joke, and now people are laughing at it. Yes. I'm a very strong believer in modern medicine. My mother is a doctor. Many of my family members are doctors or in the medical profession. I also know that we are very, very bad at dealing with chronic pain, and that medication in the United States is extremely, extremely expensive. And so increasingly people are looking for other more accessible methods of managing various symptoms that they have, for things ranging from colds to chronic pain. And I sometimes talk about like plants that do these things, but you should never consider any of this medical advice. This is just cool facts I know from researching other medical traditions, and definitely are not me providing advice on ways that you should handle your illnesses, nor do I do diagnoses. I am not a trained medical professional. I just read a lot. Yay. Speaking of teas, today we have a nice peppermint tea with Assam black tea, which is caffeine and yeah, basically it's my caffeine delivery plus peppermint, which is tasty. I am not a licensed medical professional. That is true. I also feel like it's important to disclose that I am not formally trained. I am entirely self-taught. And that feels important to disclose. Thank you. I will add that. Part of the problem is that I need to change my name on YouTube, which YouTube has made much harder to do because they really want people to use their human names, and I don't want to use my human name for cybersecurity reasons. So part of the problem is that like emails that I have linked in various places I need to change. So speaking of that, let's talk about threat models. Oh yeah, I was gonna do that one maybe first, as like just a nice thing. So if you don't want to go, what we're ultimately going to do today is we're gonna go through the security plan questions recommended by the EFF, which we'll read this article together. I'm not a professional, I just read a lot. What do I have inside my home that is worth protecting? So we're gonna go through this set of like 6 questions. This is actually how I'm going to build my threat model. But if you don't want to do that, a good place to start is actually this security planner that was referenced in the text. And I'm going to send a link so that anybody who wants to can follow along. Yeah, so let's start with which of the following do I use? I use a Mac computer, I use an Android phone, I use smart speakers, kind of, and no, I don't have a smart TV. I actually don't currently own a TV. And And what this is going to do is it's going to go through some basic concerns that a lot of people typically have, and typical devices that people are going to need to have cybersecurity plans for. And it's going to generate a list of good first actions to do to secure yourself a little bit. So things that I want to do. I want to protect myself from ransomware, viruses, and other malware. I'm not too concerned about protecting my data if my devices are stolen, frankly, because I don't keep much personal data on my devices. I want to be able to communicate privately. Yeah, I'd say that I want to be able to privately access sensitive online resources. I don't engage in illegal behavior, but I am part of the activist scene where I live. And so sometimes there are documents on CryptPad, that kind of thing, that I would prefer to access in secure methods if I'm getting information. I want to avoid phishing scams. I want to protect my financial information. As a social media person, I do want to be able to lock down my social media profile for my my alternative identity, like my family stuff specifically. Same here. I'm clicking too many things. I want to click fewer things. With these kinds of things, it's very easy to say, I want to do all of these sorts of tasks. I do think it's best to pick the ones that are most important to you so that it doesn't feel as overwhelming. I know that it says choose all that apply, but if you clicked every single one of these, I do think it would be pretty overwhelming. I'm, again, not too worried about identity theft, just given the level of cybersecurity steps that I personally have. Prevent tech companies from collecting my data. That is fair. You'd start with 3 or 4. That's fair. Let's pick the ones that sound the most interesting to me. Yeah, if you're new to protecting your online presence. I'm going to start with these ones. Preventing identity theft is a thing that is important to me. It's a thing that I'm not particularly at risk for. That's not true. Everybody's at risk for that. I am also at risk for that. This is not an invitation. Please don't try to steal my identity. That would suck. But yeah, just because of the way that I have lived my life thus far, there isn't much of my stuff that you could use easily with the government to convince them that you're me, that's out there. Just thankfully. Anyway, yeah, I didn't have a credit card for ages, so I wasn't part of the Equifax leak and a bunch of other things like that. So anyway, finally, are any of these statements true? I want to learn about shielding my identity. My account has been hacked. I am a victim of identity theft. I'm concerned about online harassment or stalking. I'm worried about governments or law enforcement accessing my data. I face additional risk because of who I am or what I do. I'm not dealing with an urgent security issue. Okay, so it gives me an action plan. And you can download it as a PDF. It also has this as an interactable thing. So, and it gives you a bunch of recommendations. So in order of priority. So gives you access to resources that are useful to know if you're getting stalked. Walks you through how to set yourself up on Signal, and knowing what your rights are as far as encrypted software are. Just a really useful, like, first pass tool, basically. Suggests that you do, that you encrypt your device, do your updates, etc. And then let's take a look at what the PDF looks like. So yeah, if you don't want to sit down and like develop a whole threat model, doing something like this, this is actually like, this one on Consumer Reports I think is actually pretty good, a pretty good starting place. Get yourself a little checklist, and over time, you know, maybe try to address one of them a week or one of them a month, whatever your time scale is. So recommendations include making sure you only browse HTTPS websites, using a recommended browser. One of the options is like learning how to use Tor. Yeah, just kind of basic stuff. I guess Tor is not basic stuff, but yeah. So this is my first pass recommendation to you. And then wanted to read this Ars Technical article just as a like, hey, you really don't need to get super worried about this. So yeah, how I learned to stop worrying mostly and love my threat model. Reducing privacy and security risks start with knowing what the threats really are, by Sean Gallagher, published in 2017. Little description of Batman's threat model. Identifies who his threats are, who are the police, the Joker, and journalists. What are like the higher threats? What are the lower threats? What the assets are that he wants to protect and how he's protecting them. Nice. I have a healthy level of paranoia given the territory I inhabit. When you write things about hackers and government agencies and all that, you simply have a higher level of skepticism and caution about what lands in your email inbox or pops up in your Twitter direct messages. Catgirl is missing there. Also the Riddler, and Two-Face, and the Penguin. But I suppose modern Batman has mostly been focused on the Joker, unfortunately. See, I grew up on, like, old school Batman, like the old live-action TV show, which was very silly. Holy Mars, Batman! Holy shark repellent, Batman! Fucking loved that show. So stupid. There's a movie. They made an old Batman movie where the thing that happens is the Penguin, and then, like, the whole league of villains except for Two-Face. I think it was like the Penguin, the Riddler, the Joker, maybe and Catwoman. Those four like teamed up together to pull off a big heist, and the heist was that they turned all of the world leaders in the UN into powder. And so like Batman and Robin had to, and then it got like blown in the wind by accident, and so they got all mixed up, and so Batman and Robin had to collect all of the sand and like filter them back out into people, and they got it almost all right, except the languages that they spoke got swapped, and that was how the movie ended. It was an 1.5 hour long movie, and I adored it, and I would love to watch it again. Adam West was iconic, like truly an era of Batman that I miss. I've never been much for the angsty superheroes, except maybe when I was reading Watchmen. But that's also like, you know, for the purpose of talking about like abuse of power and that kind of shit. So that makes sense. I also just loved the little riddles that the Riddler would send that were like totally irrelevant to what was happening. Like he would have a missile write out a riddle, and it like didn't actually, it was just like a fun joke. Pass me the shark repellent bat spray. Anyway, sorry. I know that I get off task really quickly. I'm glad that you guys like my tangents for the most part, and that you also are familiar with this wonderful period of Batman history. We should do an episode of Batman for Primordium, like old Batman, and compare it to like modern Batman. I don't know. I'm sure I could find a journal article about the transformation of Batman as entertainment over the years or something. Maybe I'll ask Kenna. I'm feeling so much better than I was earlier this morning. Shocking what actually eating breakfast will do for you. But my paranoia is also based on a rational evaluation of what I might encounter in my day-to-day. It's based on my threat model. In the most basic sense, threat models are a way of looking at risks in order to identify the most likely threats to your security. And the art of threat modeling today is widespread. Whether you're a person, an organization, an application, or a network, you likely go under some kind of analytical process to evaluate risk. Threat modeling is a key part to the practice people in security often refer to as OPSEC. This is operational security. A portmanteau of military lineage, originally meaning Operation Security, OPSEC originally referred to the idea of preventing an adversary from piecing together intelligence from bits of sensitive but unclassified information, as wartime posters warned with slogans like "loose lips might sink ships." In the internet age, OPSEC has become a much more broadly applicable practice. It's a way of thinking about security and privacy that transcends any specific technology, tool, or service. By using threat modeling to identify your own particular pile of risks, you can then move to counter the ones that are most likely and most dangerous. Threat modeling doesn't have to be rocket science. Most people already consciously or subconsciously have a threat model for the physical world around them. Whether it's changing the locks on the front door after a roommate moves out, or checking window locks after a burglary in the neighborhood, the problem is that very few people pay any sort of regular attention to privacy and security risks online unless something bad has already happened. That's not from a lack of effort by employers and industry. Collectively, society spends billions on information security each year, and it's commonplace for employees of all sorts to go through some kind of digital security training these days. But neither the security industry nor the media have helped normalize threat modeling. The public regularly gets bombarded with bits of tradecraft, or worse, security folkways. Yeah, that was a rough time. Every time a new malware threat emerges, a television journalist will inevitably tell viewers that their best protection is a complex password. This is a lie. Also, passwords kind of suck as a security measure. Do you like the ASMR? I really need to fix my microphone to do better pickup. Anyway, sorry. I don't actually like whispering. I don't know why I've been doing so much more of it lately. And though it's easy to find advice on how to stay safe digitally, much of the good advice doesn't seem to really stick. Perhaps it's because the advice doesn't always match with the actual needs of the people looking for it. Welcome back, Watson. You missed me awkwardly whispering into my microphone about how passwords suck. You get anything fun in the mail? And though it's easy to find advice on how to stay safe digitally, much of the good advice doesn't really seem to stick. Perhaps it's because the advice doesn't always match the actual needs of the people looking for it. Damn. There's a lot of stuff going on, and we as technologists tend to jump to advice like use Signal or use Tor without asking what matters to you, said Adam Shoestack, who developed tools and methodologies for developers to do threat modeling for their software while at Microsoft. Shoestack helped develop the CVE standard for tracking software vulnerabilities, and is now an independent author, a consultant, and a member of the Black Hat Review Board. As a reminder, Black hat is a term for, I am not familiar with the Black Hat Review Board specifically, but people will talk about white hat hackers, black hat hackers, and gray hat hackers. Black hat tends to be what people will call like malicious hackers, people who are creating viruses with the intents of causing destruction or stealing information for profit. White hat are benevolent hackers, people who do it for fun or for like helping identify security vulnerabilities. And gray hat is, what most people identify as, which is kind of in the middle. Maybe you look for bugs so that you can get bug bounties, but don't particularly care about, the good of mankind or whatever. I don't know. Gray hat is just kind of the way of saying, I'm in the middle. I'm morally ambiguous. How morally ambiguous? I'm not going to say. Oh, this is cool to look at. Oh. Very neat. Moving over to a new website that is not related to MITRE. This is one of the places where you can, if I'm recalling correctly, where you can report security vulnerabilities and that kind of thing. When you find them. Okay. Next section, demystifying the threat model. Recently, Showstack has been working with the Seattle Privacy Coalition, SCP, SPC, very different thing, on a privacy threat model for people of Seattle, based on Showstack's approach to threat modeling for software developers. Intended to demystify threat modeling for average people, Showstack's generalized approach boils down to a quartet of questions. What are you doing? So, the thing you're trying to do and what information is involved. What can go wrong? How could what you're doing expose personal information in ways that are bad? 3, what are you going to do about it? So identifying changes that can be made in technology and behavior to prevent things from going wrong. And did you do a good job? Reassessing how much the risk was reduced. This is one threat model. I don't love this one. I think it's overly simple. So we're going to use the Electronic Frontiers Foundation one instead. What Showstack's approach doesn't directly address are the specific sorts of threats to privacy and security. That's something Showstack doesn't see as being particularly helpful, since that part of threat modeling isn't necessarily something the average person can deal with. Telling people to be anxious all the time does little good, he says. But other security experts ours spoke with felt that understanding what types of threat a person is most likely to encounter is a key part of building a personal threat model. One along the lines of the Electronic Frontier Foundation's 5-question structure. What do you want to protect? So what data, communications, and other things that could cause problems for you if misused? 2, who do you want to protect it from? People, organizations, and criminal actors who might want to seek that stuff. So you're going to have very different defenses if you're trying to protect your information from law enforcement versus if you're trying to protect it from your parents who pay for the Wi-Fi in your house, right? How likely is it that you will need to protect it? So your personal level of exposure to those threats. How bad are the consequences if you fail? And how much trouble are you willing to go through in order to try and prevent those? So time, money, convenience you're willing to dispense with to protect those things. I've tried to consolidate the 2 approaches above into a set of steps for the average mortal, or at least someone helping the average mortal. The R's Thready Threat Assessment Model, or as some readers have demanded, the R's Thready McThreat Face Assessment Model, squeezes it all into 3 compound questions and a shampoo bottle instruction. So, rinse and repeat. Ba-dum-tsh. Who am I and what am I doing here? Who or what might want to mess with me and how? How much can I stand to do about it? Rinse and repeat. For the TLDR, you could skim ahead to how much can I stand to do about it. But with threats constantly changing and evolving, Helping people first understand how to assess their risks leads to better security in the long term compared to merely following a quick set of tips. I agree. However, if you don't want to do all of this, start with the set of tips. The set of tips are good. It's the teach a person how to fish approach, and it starts with a simple question. Who am I, and what am I doing here? Also, here you can see an example of some of my security practices. I use an extension called Privacy Badger, which is something that is created by the Mozilla Foundation, and is open source. And it blocks widgets and ads and things on pages that are attempting to track me. So there is a Twitter post here that I could take a look at if I wanted to. It's embedded. But if I look at it, Twitter is going to know that I was looking at it, and they're going to store that information about me in their cache. And they'll be able to know what website I was on and the topic of this article and such. So I don't want them to have that because they don't need it, and so I don't give it to them. Who are you, what are you doing, and where you are doing it are all major factors in determining what threats you face. For instance, statistics show your risk of dying in a car crash is dramatically lower when you're sitting in your living room. Electronic threats to your privacy, person, and treasure will be different based on who you are and what you do, and what you have done in the past. So, for example, pretty much sure the extent to what you are doing at that moment too. Yes, on some browsers, they are also able to see your other browser tabs and that kind of thing. On Mozilla, I believe they are by default. No, they're not by default. I have that setting turned on. Each of my tabs is isolated from each other, so they can't look at each other. But that is not a thing that is default. It has been the case since about 2008-ish that a website running on one tab is not able to push code and do things on another tab. Browsers have gotten pretty good at preventing that. But they can see the metadata information, I believe, still on most browsers, except ones that have explicitly turned that off. I do send I send websites that do not track by default. They don't listen to it at all. They don't have to, so why would they? They can sell that information. Did I hear about the favicon exploit? Was there a new one? So for those who don't know, the favicon is, let me extend this a little bit so that you can see them. See these little things at the top, these little pictures? That's a favicon. It's a little icon that shows up in your browser. Please share about the favicon exploit in chat. Where you work, your social and political activities, your notoriety, social connections, travel, and other factors all play into your threat model too. Such characteristics introduce different sets of potential risks to your security and privacy, and these traits could attract different sorts of potential adversaries. Of course, some activities invite risk in, and of themselves based on a kind of information Oh, I'm parsing this sentence wrong. Some activities invite risk in and of themselves based on the kind of information being exposed. In a world of threat modeling, these are often referred to as assets, important pieces of information you want to use in an activity, but simultaneously want to protect. So credit card data, yours, or if you sell stuff, a customer's, banking data, so account numbers, routing numbers, e-banking, usernames and passwords, personal personally identifying information like social security number, date of birth, income data, W-2s, passport numbers, driver's license, or national ID numbers. This is from 2021. I think I did hear about this one, but I do not remember it in detail. I thought it got fixed somewhere. I hope that the exploit's not still around. What does it let you do? Intellectual property, like that treatment for an Ars action movie I've been working on. What? Oh, like I guess personal projects and that kind of thing. Sensitive personal or business information and communications, so emails and texts that could be used to embarrass, blackmail, or imprison you. Politically sensitive information or activities that could get you in trouble with your employer, the government, law enforcement, or other interested parties. Travel plans that could be used to target you or others for fraud or other forms of attack. Other business or personal data that are financially or emotionally essential, so family digital photos, for example. That's one of the main ways that WannaCry works, right? So there is a piece of ransomware virus that's pretty well known called WannaCry. And it locks up your computer and encrypts your hard drive. And they say, hey, we will not give you back your data until you pay us. So pay up, and we'll unencrypt your hard drive, and you'll have all of your personal documents back. Hurrah. And so your option is either lose those forever if you don't have a backup, or fork over the money. It is amazing how often, like, cities and government entities will, in fact, pay ransomware. Absolutely bonkers to me. But I will say I have heard that the WannaCry support is excellent. Like, they want to make sure that you know that you will actually get your stuff back if you pay the ransom. So they have apparently very good support phone calls. Should show auto runs on stream sometime, maybe at recovery section. Yeah, that'd be a cool idea. The way favicons are loaded is dynamic, so a malicious website can serve everyone a unique favicon that creates a permanent tracking bit that cannot be deleted using standard browser, cache, cookie, etc. cleaning tools. Oh my god. That's cool. Sorry, that's clever. That's very clever. Unless it's been fixed, the only way to destroy the tracking favicon was to install the browser entirely and delete all of its files. I mean, awful, but kudos to the person who figured that one out. That's neat. That's the kind of thing that I wish people were still writing about in Frack. Like, that's a cool thing. That's like a cool discovery. Frack is a hacking magazine that's been around since phone hacking back in the 70s. Phone hacking has been going on since about the 60s-ish, but Frack has become very academic, and it kind of makes me sad. I want to find the new hacking websites, but I think that there's a lot less community in the hacking industry now. It's far more individualistic than it used to be, but also maybe I just don't know the right places to be, right? So there are a lot of other tracking tools that are simpler to implement, so when it was discovered, it was mostly a proof of concept. Am I unique? Learn how identifiable you are on the internet. Neat. I am not going to do that on a live stream for the first time. I don't want to know. I don't want that showed to people. But cool. Thank you. Pieces of information that could be used to expose your assets are just as essential to protect as the assets themselves. So, for example, things like name of your first best friend, name of the street you grew up on, that kind of thing. Personal biographical and background information might be used for social engineering against you, your friends, or a service provider. Keys, passwords, and PIN codes should also be considered as valuable things as as valuable as the things that they provide access to. Other operational information about your activities that could be exploited should also be considered, including the name of your bank or other financial service providers. For instance, a spear phishing attack on the Pentagon used a fake email from USAA, a bank and insurance company that serves many members of the military and their families. So spear phishing, I know we've talked about what phishing is. Spear phishing is generally a more targeted phishing attack. It's social engineering that has been like specifically targeted for that has been specifically created for a particular target. Tends to be the way that spear phishing is used. It's that somebody has like sat and like learned tons of information. They know the names of the people who work in HR on Thursdays, and they're able to like use the right names to make phone calls and that kind of thing. Rather than putting out a lure, you're taking a harpoon. So rather than sending out a mass email about like Nigerian princes, you're targeting to a specific attempt. Apparently Brave patched it because someone sent its devs the white paper before they published it. Interesting. What could possibly go wrong? If you see this text, then your files are no longer accessible because they have been encrypted. Perhaps you are busy looking for a way to recover your files, but don't waste your time. Nobody can recover your files without our decryption service. We guarantee that you can recover all your files safely and easily. All you need to do is submit the payment and purchase the decryption key. Please follow the following instructions. Send $300 worth of Bitcoin to the following address. Send your Bitcoin wallet ID and personal installation key to this email, your personal installation key, etc. If you've already purchased your key, please enter it below. So, this is an example of a piece of ransomware. Stuff happens. Sometimes it's accidental, like that time a Department of Veteran Affairs analyst took home my personal health data and that of 26.5 million fellow veterans on an external hard drive, and the data was stolen. In the physical world of our daily lives, we assess threats based hopefully on real-world data. If there have been recent burglaries in a neighborhood, we up our vigilance. In certain higher-risk neighborhoods, we take precautions. If we see someone walking down the sidewalk that we want to avoid, we cross the street. Threat intelligence in the digital world is a bit more complicated, but it's essentially the same principle. We identify possible threats based on motive, resources, and capabilities. In this part of modeling, it's important to focus on the most likely threats to your assets and not get caught up in protecting against unicorns. Again, firewalls don't stop dragons. Most of us are not enemies of the state, at least not yet, or of interest to some foreign power. I should hope not. We should likely be more concerned about criminals trying to steal information that they can use for financial gain or use to coerce or deceive us into giving them money directly. But there are other sorts of threats individuals and organizations need to concern themselves with in threat modeling. At the most basic level, every person who uses the internet and mobile applications faces a common set of security and privacy threats. Some of these threats are obvious and immediate, others are less intuitive but potentially more damaging in the long term. So criminals using crimeware to steal personal information that they can use to empty bank accounts, make fraudulent credit card purchases with, or sell to others for identity theft purposes. Fraudsters who fool. Ransomware operators who demand payment to recover access to stolen personal digital assets. Identity thieves and other criminals. Etc. Etc. Sorry that I'm kind of skipping around. Each of these threat actors has a different level of skill and available resources. They also have different motives for and levels of commitment to getting your stuff. Typically, attackers motivated by money will not expend more resources than the value of what they're going after. It's unusual for a criminal to spend a year or hundreds of thousands of dollars just for the ability to make a few hundred, and they'll likely not target individuals specifically unless they're a gateway to a big haul. And of course, there's one other major threat everyone faces: ourselves. Accidental disclosure or casual information leakage over email, social media, or other channels can be just as bad as being hacked. Such mistakes can allow others to gain further access to personal information by someone who happens across it. And how? The next part of the what could go wrong question is looking at the ways adversaries or accidents could break your security or privacy. There are 6 primary types of attack, as defined by Stride, which is a threat model Microsoft developed for software developers. Spoofing identity, tampering with data, repudiation, information disclosure, denial of service, and elevation of privilege. And we'll talk more about those later. Yada, yada. Okay, I think we're actually going to stop reading this one. It's an excellent article. I'll make sure to post it in the Discord for anybody who would like to read through it as they are doing their own threat model. But let's go ahead and start with mine. So let's decide what my threat. So we're going to steal the, I think what we're going to do is we're going to steal the Electronic Frontier Foundation's questions as described by this list. Sad, there used to be another article here that I really liked. They've done a little bit of reworking of it, which is good. It's more accessible to the average person, but I do miss the original one. And I'm also going, so this is basically the assets question. We're also going to reduce the size of these just a little bit. So, what do I want to protect? Muting stream, getting ready for yours. Awesome. Have happy stream. Thank you for the lurk. And yeah. I'll catch you later. So, what do I want to protect? I want to protect personal communications with friends and loved ones. Bank information, access to my, TikTok, Twitch, Tumblr, etc. So the accounts where I have my brand, where I make money. Patreon, that's a good one too. What else do I want to protect? I don't really have photos or anything that I care about. I guess information about my location when I'm out and about. And then information about my online activities from corporations / agencies. Not because I do anything spooky, but because it's my business. It's not theirs, and I don't like being sold things. Who do I want to protect it from? I guess I jumped the gun a little bit. Who do I want to protect it from? Online stalkers, which are more of a problem for content creators than you would think. I got my first marriage proposal when I hit 10,000 followers, It was awful and really stressful, and I blocked the guy 3 times on different social media accounts. Oops. You're good, Marcy. That's unfortunate. You are not an online stalker. Of mine, I think, hopefully. Online stalkers, government. Wow. I even said it with the pronounced N and still typed it wrong. Government agencies, tech companies. And then like run-of-the-mill scammers. How likely is it that you need to protect it? Personal communications are going to be fairly high likelihood. We're going to do this in a cute way. We're going to insert a little table that has I need to change the default for tables if I'm going to keep writing on black paper. Okay. How likely is it that I need to protect it? Asset, likelihood. And then can I do the validation here? Damn, I was hoping that they would have a feature that they have over on Excel, or sorry, on spreadsheets, but they don't have it here yet. That's another one I'm going to add. My writings / intellectual property. As you can see, I'm currently using Google Drive. This is going to end probably by the end of the month. You use AppFlowy. What is AppFlowy? Let's give these, like, I don't know, fun background color. Oh, that did not do what I wanted. Note-taking FOSS app. It's like Notion. Cool. I'll give it a check. I've been looking at doing, I have a server. And so I've been looking at doing, what's it called? You've been making a lot of cybersecurity updates in the past couple months. What was it called? Nextcloud, yeah. I was planning on hosting a Nextcloud instance because I do a lot of like shared document editing with people, and Nextcloud is supposed to like have pretty comparable tools to Google Docs. And I don't want to lose that. But I also don't want Google to be able to harvest literally everything that I put in Google Docs ever for their machine learning, like for their generative AI language training model. So, I've debated like paying for a hosted instance, but also it gives me an excuse to like revamp my server, and that sounds fun. So let's go through the assets. So personal communications, bank info, access to accounts, location info, online activity info, and let's add one more. My writings / intellectual property. Fun. Definitely more intense than my current setup. I know it's not particularly intense, but more intense than my setup. Personal communications, likelihood, medium. Medium risk. Yeah, I have like enough connections to like activist communities that I could get targeted. Yeah, I'd say medium risk. Fake info. How likely is it that I need to protect it? Very likely, but low risk. Like there are threats every day. There are scams every day that try to get your bank info. I've managed to already block a lot of those, but yeah, 100% a thing that like happens on the regular for everybody. Access to accounts. Medium low. Because I do make my income with these accounts, and am an online, like, I'm an online presence. I'm an internet personality. So my risk for like somebody targeting my account specifically is slightly higher because they could get income out of it, or they could ransom it, since it is, one of my sources of income. Location info. I don't currently have a stalker, so not super high risk. I do sometimes attend protests, so we'll say medium high, just given my own feelings. Online activity info. High risk. This happens all the time. My information is being harvested constantly in ways that I do not want. My writing / intellectual property, also high risk, particularly given the recent changes in terms of service. How bad are the consequences if I fail? We're going to duplicate the same thing. And the answer is it depends a little bit on the situation. God, I hate that that's where the page break is. Come on. There we go. You had an affiliated account back then. Oof. Yeah, I think I also had an affiliated account back then, but I wasn't making any money yet. And I was able to change a number of things. My tax info would have been there. So yeah, I guess that's a place where I've had a leak. It was like right around when I was switching over to affiliate, so I don't remember if it was like slightly before or slightly after. I should probably know that. I do remember that I changed all my passwords for Twitch anyway and other things like that. Personal communications. How bad are the consequences? Embarrassment if certain acquaintances saw communications. there are a few people I talk to who like yeah. Embarrassment of certain acquaintances saw communications. However, for some personal communications could be like bad for the people I'm talking to and might result in like me being asked to speak at a trial or something. Again, nothing bad, just like I don't know, normal shit. Yeah, hypotheticals. Bank info. I lose all my money. Would have to rely on the goodwill of my friends and community for a while. This would suck a lot. Access to accounts. I lose my way to get money. Would have to rely on the goodwill of my friends and community for a while. This would also suck a lot. Give you all their stolen. I know a guy who that happened to. My info security professor in college used to work for some triple letter agencies of unknown identity. But he had $20,000 deposited into one of his bank accounts. And no one knows why. This happened like when he was telling us about it, it had happened like 5 years beforehand, 4 or 5 years. And so what they had done is they had, contacted the FBI and also the bank and things. They transferred all of their money out, just left the $20,000 there, and have like isolated that account. And it's just sitting there with $20,000 in it to see like if anyone ever tries to like pull it or anything. Wild, right? Like, what a weird, I don't know what this scam is. I don't know why a person would do that. Money laundering fuck up? Could be. Pretty big fuck up. Location info. If it's that I was at a protest that the police decide to prosecute for, could temporarily go to jail and have a long legal battle. If it's just normal daily locations, could have personal dangers due to stalkers. Online activity. Should rename this consequences. accurate/targeted phishing attacks and marketing. I'm a woman, or I'm not a woman, but I am politically a woman. Like potential prosecution for miscarriages. I'm currently like not capable of getting pregnant, pretty much, but like that's not necessarily going to stop the state of like Oklahoma or Texas or Georgia or whatever. God, I feel so bad for folks who have, like, I feel bad for just about everybody. Like people who are wanting abortions and are unable to get them, or people who get caught having abortions, etc. But like, can you imagine the hurt and pain of like having a legitimate miscarriage and being accused of inducing it when you like wanted that baby, and like being put on trial and having to prove, because in a lot of these cases it feels a lot like having to like prove you're innocent rather than prove you're guilty, which is not how the American legal system is supposed to work. Can you imagine being put on trial for like having had an accidental miscarriage? I think that would kill me. Like, I don't think I could handle that. That is wild. Also unrelated, I want to get a job at GBL. That would be so funny. Do it. Risks. Yeah, even if it doesn't make it to trial, just like being accused of that. Like, the amount of guilt that happens with accidental miscarriages already is huge. Like, they happen. Miscarriages are normal. Many people have miscarriages and never realize that it was a miscarriage because it's actually like insanely. The fact that humans get pregnant is crazy. Like, the number of ways that things can go wrong and the frequency with which they go wrong is a lot. But yeah, it's not uncommon for people to have had a miscarriage and never known, like during the first month of pregnancy or something. Sorry if I'm like going off on a tangent that's making anybody uncomfortable. Please let me know in chat if this is like a triggering topic or anything. Same rules, honestly, for Primordium. Like, we have a rule in Primordium, the reading group, that if there's a conversation topic that's like panic-inducing, you can put an X in chat, and one of the moderators will let you know when the conversation has moved on from that topic, so that you can rejoin and be able to feel safe. But also able to like take that break from a triggering conversation. So I know this is a heavier topic, so if that is a thing, please feel free to use the X. I should come up with like a keyboard shortcut for that reminder when I notice that I'm talking about something that might be triggering. I would like to put that on a list of to-do tasks. In a lot of ways, the uterus is intentionally hostile to the development of a fertilized egg. Yes, 100%. And like if there's a mutation in the egg or in the zygote, more correctly, so in the combined sperm and egg, it will often just get flushed out. So you might have like a slightly heavier period and otherwise have no idea. But anyway, my writings and intellectual property, tech companies profiting off of my writing and improving their models for the sake of capitalism, which I think is bad for the future. Woo! How much trouble are you willing to go through in order to prevent those? Alrighty, so last section of our threat model. Personal communications. Decently high. I really care about the privacy of my personal communications. Just cause. It's a thing I've always cared about. Old lady voice. We'll see if I can get there. I care deeply about my personal communications, Marcy. I'm kind of just crackly today. Let's see. Want some tea and biscuits. This is a little better. It's a little higher. Old ladies can have very many voices. This is true, young one. Decently high. I will happily use end-to-end encryption. And also reduce contact with friends who, what is the word? Recklessly use non-end-to-end encrypted services. Recklessly as in, like, talk about things that they should not. Also, we'll water a human. I hate water. Look at this full glass of water. Awful. I am a little hoarse. Or I sounded a little bit like a horse. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, tannins and tea have been drying out my throat more frequently lately. I've also just, like, not been feeling very well. I've been having a lot of, y'all know that I'm chronically ill. I've been having a lot of, like, flare-up symptoms, which includes, like, more acid reflux and that kind of thing, which does affect the quality of my voice. Remove microphones from home that are sending data to third-party sources. / find ways to prevent them from sending data. This is actually going to be hard for me because there are accessibility features that I get from having digital assistants, particularly, I have ADHD, so I use the timers a lot, and I also use them to, like, make lists of things that I need. There is a Raspberry Pi voice activation smart home project. The issue is I already have all this hardware. And I think that I'm going to be able to reverse engineer aspects of it, but it's possible that I'm just going to wind up bricking a bunch of Google Homes. So I don't know. I'm kind of nervous. It may be that I wind up doing a stream and fundraising so that I can order the parts to just do like a Raspberry Pi based project, an Arduino based project. But we'll see. You can definitely run it locally. Like there are options out there. I'm planning on doing Home Lab probably, which is an open source project that coordinates smart home devices that you can run on your server. It's a lot of effort. It's a lot to do. So willing to set up local server to manage home assistant products. It's a lot of work. I would definitely call it a hobby, but also work, like hard work. Happy to switch browsers. Level of effort. Willing to have delays between when I create content and upload it. At least not a doomsday prepper. True. Very fair. I don't know, the one guy that I knew who was a doomsday prepper, I used to be like, hey, if there's a zombie apocalypse, I'd definitely go to him. But now I'm pretty sure that, like, he would probably wind up, like, harvesting me for my meat and for glue. So, your cousin's probably nicer than him, though. So, when I upload it, so that I can remove geolocation data, etc. Nice. Be the doomsday prepper people want to come to. That way I can harvest them for their meat and glue. There's so many easier ways to make glue. Like, you just mix flour and water. You have great glue. Fantastic. I mean, not for, like, wood, but, like, for paper and stuff like that. Why do we want glue? It's a great fastener. I don't know why we want glue. I don't know why I'm fixating on glue. I don't actually use glue that frequently in my day-to-day life, except when I'm making books. So, or, like, repairing broken dishes, in which case flour paste isn't gonna work. More than a little horse. But I guess I also use glue when I'm mailing things. I'll use a glue stick so that I don't have to lick all of the envelopes, or I'll have a little cup of water that I can, like, dip a brush in so that I can paint the water over the envelope seal to close it. Won't bring personal device to protests, which is inconvenient and can increase, like, difficulty getting in contact with, like, emergency health services, but so it goes. Your mom had a tube with a sponge on the end for that's so smart. That would probably work better than my current solution. That's why burners exist. True. Can always just shove a prepaid SIM card in. Pay for it in cash. I'm not really that. I'm not. I swear to God, I don't do anything like super sketchy. In fact, because of my health issues, I really haven't been able to attend a lot of the protests that are happening in my area in the first place. It's just not safe for me with the current circulation rates of COVID and the flu. I can't risk getting sick, and I can't risk my housemates getting sick because we're a pretty immunocompromised household. Hello, is this the police? I have found the serial killer. Police do things that are super sketchy. This is true. And I don't, I'm gonna be honest, one of the biggest arguments that people say as a why we shouldn't do digital security is, well, I have nothing to hide. The fact of the matter is that with enough data, people can tell whatever story they want about you when they pick and choose. The police are fucked in the US. That is correct. Actually, we're gonna go to a fun little website that I found the other day. Thank you, Tumblr. This one was specifically made for the city of Seattle. Yeah, you also have nothing to hide until a shitty person makes something normal illegal. Like being gay, which, in case you couldn't tell, gay is not correct. Very queer. I'm a very queer human being, and I try to put that out into the world pretty clearly. Yep. I include that in my queerishness, when I was younger, I did the whole label thing, so I think that my original label that I went with when I was in middle school, high school, and figuring out my queer identity was I think I identified as asexual, panromantic, and androgynous. Yeah, I've kind of just dropped terms. I read an interesting description of something the other day that was what was I saying? Oh, how you describe your queerness to other people. If I'm talking about my sexuality to a straight person who isn't part of the queer community, I'm gonna say I'm bisexual and poly. I might not even mention the poly part, depending on the situation, because sometimes that gets you lectured about going to hell. But if I'm talking to another queer person, I might be more specific, or I might be more vague. I might be, I remember one of the things that I used to say, which is not true anymore, was that I was a lesbian with an exception, or a couple exceptions. But anyway, with someone who's queer or part of the queer community, I might use more descriptive things to talk about my experience with gender. I might mention to them that I'm agender, which I'm probably not going to wind up talking about to someone who's not part of the community because it's just not really relevant to them and how they want to and how they're going to interact with me. Because I don't mind being seen as a woman. It sucks when it's all the time, but it's not like it's. I know how I present in the world, and I do it intentionally. So, meh. Anyway, let's talk about cops in the United States for a little bit. Would you wear a uniform that evokes fear and distrust in your neighbors? Would you risk your mental well-being affecting you and your loved ones? Would you be comfortable with helping send someone to prison for years because of a petty parole violation? Aw, thank you. Or nonviolent offense? Would you participate in actions that split apart families? Are there other ways you can build community beyond policing in your community? You deserve the truth. Recruiters have a seductive pitch, tapping into our real needs for stable employment. What's intersex? Intersex is, so we have a society right now, at this moment in history, in time, that primarily sorts people into two physical sexes. We sort people into male and female. This is not actually a super accurate categorization of humans. So, like, one statistic, I have not checked this, but one statistic that I've heard, for example, is that about 55% of people who are assigned male at birth will experience breast tissue growth. And this is seen as, like, a bad thing. Like, this is seen as, like, strange behavior, like a strange incident, something that needs to be corrected and fixed. But if it's happening with 55% of the male population, maybe it's not actually that weird. Maybe that's not something that is exclusively characteristic of the female population, for example. So people who are intersex are people who were born on the continuum of the male to female sex characteristics. So they might have they might have a mixture of physical sex characteristics. They might have if they were predominantly assigned female at birth, they might have facial hair that goes beyond what is considered typical for a woman. They might have a basically there are like cutoffs in in hospitals for like length of like penis and that kind of thing that they will use to determine whether a child is typical or not. And then, at least in the United States and in many Western countries, sometimes even without the parents' knowledge, they will apply a surgery that makes the child more typical and fit into their assigned sex at birth. It is very, very rare for someone to be marked as like ambiguous sex at birth. It does occasionally happen, but yeah, that's what intersex is. It's people who have like physical traits that are on the continuum between the male and female sexes that we predominantly have in Western culture. Yeah. And I could talk about gender and sex across history and time all day, every day. It's very, very interesting to me. It's actually kind of not exactly how I got my start on TikTok. I got my start on TikTok talking about the Necronomicon and how it borrowed heavily from ancient Mesopotamian history and ancient Mesopotamian history and theology and legends. And talking about how the Necronomicon was intentionally created as a hoax. It was never meant to be taken seriously. But from there, I wound up talking a lot about gender in ancient Mesopotamia because it's interesting and it worked very, very differently, as far as we can tell, from the way that we modernly conceive of gender. Also, I think that we're currently going through a period of time where we're having shifting definitions of gender, and I think that's super, super interesting to look at. But anyway, yeah, probably not a today thing, considering the stream is already running pretty long. Most states still don't have ways to document intersex, so the hospital or parents often have to choose male or female, even when ambiguous. Yeah, so that's another thing that will happen, is they'll say, hey, you have an ambiguous child, do you want a boy or a girl? And we'll do the appropriate hormone therapy through their childhood and adolescence to direct them towards that. Yeah. Anyway, Gender and sex politics are very, very interesting, especially across time. We're going to continue reading about why the police in the United States are shitty, because this feels relevant. How far have I gotten in this? I should finish this up. We're going to do that first. Bank info. Will not save on paper or in plain text. Will not do any of those weird name generator memes and post them. What's NFC? Near field communication. Oh, is that like doing the phone taps? Oh yeah, I don't use password managers. Which is maybe bad, but I'm really good at remembering passwords. Unfortunately, I have a lot of them, but I have a standard way of keeping track of them. Same thing with access to accounts. And no sending emails from address linked to public-facing accounts. Self-host. That seems fair. Okay, back to the police. So you want to be a cop. These are common recruiting techniques for police in the United States. What's funny is actually, I live in Georgia. We currently have this big issue with Cop City, as it is being called by those who do not like it, which is the police here want to build a massive training facility that that specifically is geared at teaching police how to suppress urban-based protests, and also like trains them in military-grade equipment. It's huge. They cut down huge numbers of protected forest to like clear the ground for this facility. It's a bad time. It's also notable that like the Black Lives Matter stuff has been like a movement that like has a lot of its roots in Atlanta. There's a reason it's being built here. And also the backers for both the like companies building the facility and for the Atlanta police and for the various equipments that they're going to buy are all owned by like the same investors. There's like some funky, shitty money trail stuff happening. Anyway, point is, I don't remember why I started saying this. Police are bad. I don't like them. They make me feel very scared when I see them. And I present as a white woman. Also, can we just talk about how insane it is that it's normal for there to be like plain-clothed cars for police? Like, our police specifically ride in vehicles that make it hard to identify that they are police. So if you needed assistance, you could not flag them down, but you can get traffic tickets more easily. Be the change. Who better to... Oh, that's what I was saying, is Atlanta is having to recruit their police force from other states. They're having massive recruitment events in places like New York City because they cannot get people to become police in Atlanta at the quantity that they are wanting. Because we don't like the police. They scare us and kill people. If you know what you're looking for, they are identifiable. That is true. There are like certain models of cars that they are more likely to use. You can check the license plates. It'll say that they're a government vehicle, things like that. They're often black, not always. But like, yeah, you can identify the plainclothed cars. But I hate it. Cheers! The fact that guns are a thing. Yeah, and I could talk about guns. I maybe have some unpopular opinions on guns. Namely that I think we desperately need there to be fewer guns in the United States. We should institute some sort of buyback program like what Australia did after their first mass shooting. After one of their big mass shootings in 2005. The Australian government offered to buy back guns at market rate from people to reduce the overall quantity of guns on the streets. And it worked really, really well. I do think that the United States is geographically diverse enough that there is a need in some areas for guns. Like particularly on farms or in particularly rural areas in Texas or Alaska, there is a need for guns for like personal safety reasons. We have a growing wild boar problem across the bottom of the United States that is making its way north and west. And if you are out hiking in East Texas, and there is a wild boar, you will die if you don't have a gun. It's just the case. They will maul you to death, and that is very real. So there are areas you do not go hiking unless you have a gun. And I don't have a gun, so I don't go hiking. But my point is that like, I mean, I would actually argue that there are reasons to have rifles specifically, because rifles are a hunting weapon. I don't think that there's any reason why you should have semi-automatics or automatic weapons, things that are designed for specifically for shooting large quantities of bullets very, very fast, for the purpose of like killing people. We don't need those. But like, yeah, I guess basically my thought is, I think that that's fair. Semi-automatic is most guns. That is fair. I don't think that there should be automatic guns. I don't think that there should be military grade weapons. The argument that it's because of our right to bear arms in case the government does something evil and we need to overthrow it. Shotguns can do a lot more damage than a rifle. But what was I saying? Yeah, shotguns are more of a self-defense tool. Shotgun is what you're going to use against a boar, probably. Can't eat buck full of buckshot. That's the other thing, is that we do actually have a lot of hunting. That is a legitimate way that people in rural areas in the United States get a lot of their meat. I think that a gun buyback program would help fix a lot. We have like 3 guns per person in the United States or something like that out there, which is wild. At absolutely insane. I also think that another way that we could do that, I don't remember what European country does this, but rather than like we could do like having a tax on ammunition might be a good solution, or having like controlled sales of ammunition might also be a good way to like help limit some of our gun issues. And then ultimately, I also think that individual cities and counties and folks should have the right to ban guns within their territories. Yeah, that's true. Hunting license pay for the majority of most states' conservation programs. Hunting in the United States is a large part of why we actually have not killed animals, like wiped out entire species. Yeah, I think that a lot of our issues come from having a very, very active gun lobby that doesn't like it when individual cities or counties or states or whatever size decide to institute stricter legislation on a local level. I think that's bad. I think that a city should be able to say, we don't want guns here. And that should be fine. Anyway. Be the change. Who better to police your own neighborhood than you? Common recruitment thing. We don't need nicer cops, we need fewer cops. The problem is bigger than one person's values. The problem with police violence is rooted in policing. The idea that you can become a cop and inject your own values deeply underestimate the abuses of the police force. You'll help us get bad guys off the street and make a real difference. Being a cop isn't about getting rid of the bad guys. The vast majority of arrests in the United States are for marijuana possession or parole violations, more than murder, rape, and all other violent crimes combined. Our communities are safe when they are resourced, not policed. The most effective way to reduce violent crime is to provide young people with job training and employment opportunities. This is 100% true and shown by the evidence. It's a career to support your family with. Cops often experience mental, physical, and moral instability. The warrior mentality demanded of cops to be tough, dominant, aggressive, and routinely exposed to violent and high-stress situations spills over into the home, leading to higher rates of divorce and child abuse in police families. 40% of police families in the United States experience domestic violence. Or 40% of police families experience domestic violence in Seattle. That's 400% higher than... Wait, let me look at this resource. I think it's saying experience compared to average families. Yeah, that's what it's saying. 40% of police families experience domestic violence. That's 400% higher than national averages. They don't make our communities safer. Police crimes are not uncommon. More than 1,000 officers are arrested every year. On-duty cops kill 1,000 people every year. Since 2005, only 77 cops have been charged and only 26 were actually convicted. Sexual assault, overwhelmingly of minors, is the second highest crime committed by police. Policemen are 150% more likely to sexually assault someone than men who aren't cops. And they're also known to plant false evidence. Has the body cam rule become a thing that's 100% on now? No. That's a thing that is controlled at local levels, to my knowledge. And also, there's this fun thing. Sometimes the body cams just stop working. And isn't it funny that it tends to happen right before somebody gets killed? Like, say, the person in Atlanta who was sitting down and shot over 50 times. But the body cams for the 3 cops involved just weren't working. Yeah, They lie about footage existing all the time. You can do better. Alternatives to careers in teaching that help meet the needs of your community. Teaching, child and elder care, mental health care, union and community organizing, parks and recreation, firefighting, and EMS. Behind every blue lie, there is an ugly truth. Police departments across the country work hard to promote their profession. They have entire PR departments focused on recruiting you, increasingly using strategies to recruit Black, Latinx, and Muslim people. Every year, there are more guides, conferences, and toolkits meant to boost police popularity and reflect the communities they serve. You might meet a recruiter at a job fair, in your school, or through their social media campaigns. You might find yourself talking to a recruiter at one of their back-to-school supply drives, basketball tournaments, barbecues, or other community events meant to rebrand the police. Seattle can do better. Earlier this year, the Seattle Police Department signed a $2.5 billion contract with a marketing firm to create a new SPD recruitment brand. This is just the latest sign of SPD's growing desperation to recruit you to a department that is best known for its racism, violence, and corruption. The city of Seattle continues to increase SPD's $355 million budget, despite overwhelming evidence that the police force should be shrinking. 80% of SPD's calls for service are for non-criminal activity, and according to SPD's own study, at least 50% of calls could be answered with alternative non-sworn response. Most of what SPD does could be done better by civilians, or not done at all if people's basic needs were met. Seattle has to stop throwing money at a failed department where no one wants to work. Instead, we should reinvest in non-police crisis response jobs, teachers, healthcare providers, outreach workers, and all the community programs that actually improve public safety. And that is the end of this one. Thank you for letting me go on a rant about the police. But yeah, basically, to recap what we were actually supposed to be focusing on, this week we've gone over some basic definitions. I will be posting little flashcards for these in my Discord. So if you want to do a study thing with these terms, check that out. We have made our own threat model based on my needs, and we've also generated a nice little checklist, which I don't think I actually still have pulled up, but I'll include the link to that in activities that folks can do at home. With that, I think we're going to draw stream to an end. I am going to go ahead and run to the bathroom, grab a little snack, and pop over into my Discord where I will be hanging out and editing my video footage from the past week. And y'all are welcome to come hang out and ask me questions about your threat models. So take care. I'll see you in the Discord if you're joining us over there. I'll be there in I'll take a 10-minute break. I'll be there at about 2:25. And farewell. And thank you for the reminder about the command. Take care, y'all.